Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Just Another Talk. And on this episode, I'm going to show you security camera footage of a jewelry store, and then we'll talk about it. Yeah, they're not playing. They're taking everything right in the bag. And that's where the clip ends. I wanted to show that because I was doing research for this video and I found an article that is a bit interesting, but also doesn't really make sense. The Fox 31 report, which is a news station in that area, they interviewed the owner and I believe it was her niece who were the owners of the store, and they specifically said they had Venezuelan accents, and she also said I believe it's organized crime.
Denver police confirming they are looking for these 8 Hispanic men.
It's organized crime, and their accent is from Venezuela.
So I thought, in the process, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, they hit the jewelry store. I mean, the guys at the beginning, if you notice, the guy walked in, he had an earpiece, so he was communicating with somebody, and the report says it as well. The video is pretty straightforward, right? The guys go in there, they rob the place, they leave. But for me, it really piqued my interest when I found this article. And this article is the question surfaced regarding control of troubled apartment complex in Aurora. So this was August 20th that this article came out. In the article, there were things that to me just don't make sense. Sentences that seemed like they needed more information, and just information in places where you're like, okay, why would you say that after that? It was interesting. And so the first part is, it says the city of Aurora has slated another apartment for cleanup in the wake of 2 others that had major code violations and issues with crime. Pretty straightforward sentence, right? Code violations and issues with crime at the apartment complexes. That's where they needed to be cleaned up, right? The next portion of the article says the latest complex to be slated for cleanup is the Whispering Pines apartment complex in the 1300 block of Helena Street, not far from Chambers and Colfax. On Tuesday, Fox 31 cameras captured full trash bins. It's not clear when they were last emptied. The crew found a number of boarded up windows and Whispering Pines. The city of Aurora now says cleanup crews will make their way to Helena Street after picking up a trash pile at another complex at Dallas Street and East 12th Avenue. You're probably wondering, okay, what does all this have to do with the jewelry store? But bear with me. I promise you, this is a wild ride. So this seems like, okay, great. There was boarded up apartment complexes, whatever. Trash needs to be picked up, right? There were code violations in these places. The next paragraph says, a wild shootout took place at the edge of Lowry Apartments Sunday night, leaving one person seriously hurt. Just last week, Aurora shut down the Fitzsimmons complex after several code violations. Huh? So someone was shot and seriously hurt, but just last week they closed down the complex for several code violations? I feel like there's something that needs to go in between those 2 sentences. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Following that, it says, the police department has announced that a task force has been set up to investigate alleged Venezuelan gang activity. But APD did not say if the gang was involved with any of the crimes at any of the troubled apartment complexes. Why would APD say that the gangs would be associated with the trouble at the complex if up to now it's just really been code violations? Since we're on code violations, how bad are these code violations? When you look at how bad these code violations are, I actually ended up finding another article, and this one states Aurora shuts down apartment complex as tenants struggle to find new homes. And in this article, the city of Aurora said it shut the complex down because living conditions are unfit for human habitations and code violations date back 2 years ago. 2 years? That's a long time. And I've seen code violations that are pretty crazy as well since I'm in the construction industry, but like to say that it's unfit for human habitation, that's pretty bad. Like you can't even live there, and they date back 2 years ago. I'm When researching this, the reason I kind of went down a kind of multiple rabbit holes is because I'm asking the why. Okay, the jewelry store was robbed, right? They said they sounded and they spoke Venezuelan dialect of Spanish. The Fitzsimmons complex, which is the one I was reading about, is 20 minutes from the jewelry store. Not just that, but for the last couple years, we've really been told that immigration is not an issue and that nothing's happening. There's really no problems. I'm not one to be like, oh no, immigration's the problem or this is the problem. I just look at things that are presented to me. And so I bring up immigration because the first article we started with, there was a part that I didn't get to that I'm going to get to now. The article that we started with didn't say how long ago the violations were, so that's why I moved on to the article I just read from, telling you it says 2 years. So let's go back to that first article and read the rest of this that I think really ties this story together and kind of makes it a story that I think people should know. The last sentence we read was, just last week, Aurora shut down the Fitzsimmons complex after several code violations. The following paragraph says, the police department has announced that a task force has been set up to investigate alleged Venezuelan gang activity. But APD did not say if the gang was involved with any of the crimes at any of the troubled apartment complexes. And this is the paragraph where this article now ties it to the jewelry store. The people at the jewelry store said, the owners had said they were Venezuelan. And you have Aurora police announcing that they've set up a task force to investigate an alleged Venezuelan gang that's 20 minutes down the street from where this place got robbed. Not to mention that there are other apartment complexes in that same area that have been trashed and have been closed down and boarded up, like the article said. So if keep reading the article, clearly APD is trying to leave some room for, hey, maybe it's not the gangs, because the next sentence says, however, City Councilwoman member Danielle Juriski, I don't know how to say that, Jorski. However, City Councilwoman member Danielle Jersky told Fox 31 she strongly believes there is an organized crime at the complex in question. Another key word that I think ties this article to what happened at the store is organized crime. The lady in the interview, who the niece, I believe, of the owner,
They come and they're prepared to do anything. It was definitely organized crime. They had earpieces. They obviously knew exactly what they were doing.
In the interview for the jewelry store, said she believes it's organized crime. They had earpieces. They were coordinated. It was more than one. And as you can see by the security film, it was a ton of them. And they were in and out. 3 minutes. I think it was the time that they had said at some point. The city council woman in the article continues to say, I have several residents telling me that there's a huge gang presence and they believe that their own complex has been taken over by these gangs. They tell me that there is no more staff left on site. They are living in fear, and a couple times with these different shootouts, they have said they feel like they are living in a war zone. That's insane. First and foremost, there's no staff on site. Imagine living in an apartment complex. Obviously, you have the main office, maybe the place you go to drop off your bills, or, there's an issue, something you got to do, a service call, right? They're gone. They're not there. What do you do? Not to mention that this article is about the tenants of that complex being kicked out. Just imagine being a tenant in that kind of environment. That's crazy. And now they're kicking you out because they can't control the area. Now, the article keeps going and says, Two residents told Fox 31 the same thing on a tour of one of the complexes Monday. James Allaby, a law enforcement expert, said proving that gang activity exists and can be extremely difficult because they are undocumented and it's going to be harder to identify them, and they don't really care because they don't have IDs. They are going to be able to change their names, Allaby said. Wait a minute. You're telling me that this whole time we're being told, hey, immigration's not a problem. Immigration's not a problem. Now you have this police expert telling Fox 31 that it's going to be hard to find them or catch them because they're undocumented. How did we get this far? And how did all of a sudden a video about a jewelry store being robbed for $2.5 million become political? Holy shit. The mayor, Aurora, calls them slumlords. And then the owner of the complex and CBZ management claimed they could not do maintenance or repair because the complex was overrun by a migrant gang. So now you have management and the owner and the tenants and this jewelry store that was robbed 20 minutes from there for 2.5 mil, saying it was Venezuelan gang. Is this a combination of what some guy with orange hair said?
Issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
I'm really not trying to be a Republican, but it's really fucking hard right about now. And I'm not trying to be political, but like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I crazy? So I don't know if we could tie all those things together. I just want to present all three sides. You know, there's a common denominator, and it's organized crime and Venezuelan gang. And obviously we have a problem. I'm not trying to assume anything or have people think anything specific. I just want to present those facts. I found it interesting. You know, again, the jewelry store was robbed for $2.5 million. They don't know if their insurance is going to cover it completely. This is just something that happened, you know, it's unexpected. Now, there are a couple other things that I do want to talk about. There are some things that should be discussed, because if they're a gang and they just stole $2.5 million and police don't know, they won't be able to necessarily catch them. They're undocumented, don't have IDs. But 2.5 million in gold and diamonds. I know some diamonds have ways to be tracked and stuff, and so, you know, they're sketched at a microscopic level, so, you know, people can't just steal diamonds. So I know that portion that might be a little bit harder to offload, but again, it's a lot of gold chains and just jewelry in general that if they even sell at 50% off, you know, they still made 1.25. It's a ridiculous amount. I'm pretty sure 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you could never hear that a gang has come over and took over an apartment complex and multiple other complexes in the area.
Tonight, police in Aurora, Colorado are calling a recent violent incident associated with a Venezuelan street gang a, quote, isolated incident, but it's raising fears once again of a surge in crimes committed by migrants hundreds of miles away from the border.
It's a scene that seems to be out of a developing nation where corruption and violence run rampant. But this surveillance video is from an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado.
To your knowledge, what are the men in this video doing?
They are going through the complex, like I am told that they are, heavily armed. They patrol the complex. They control who comes in, who goes out. They go from door to door. They have forced their way into many complexes. They have thrown people out.
Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky blames neighboring Denver for its sanctuary policy, which provides services to undocumented migrants, the vast majority not connected to crimes and there to find work. Those seen in this video, though, believed to be associated with the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, designated by the U.S. Treasury Department as a transnational criminal organization, closely watched by the FBI.
We're certainly tracking that particular gang, TDA, as we would refer to it, whether it's their, drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping for ransom, different kinds of violent crime.
To the tune where the police had to create a task force, not to mention that a jewelry store was hit in the neighborhood for 2.5 million. Like, why is this not a bigger story? Or is it just maybe me and it is a big story and I just don't know? I'm not seeing, I don't get it. And I didn't start this channel to be political or to say, vote for one side or vote for another, but it's kind of clear who said what about immigration. So now we have our first problem. Imagine living in that neighborhood, even if you don't live in the immediate, if you don't live at the, if you don't live at the complex, but you live in the immediate vicinity. Imagine what that must be like. That could hit anywhere. Now, I think it's going to hit the inner cities the worst. I think this is the first and hopefully the last, but who knows? And judging by how this happened, the property management company blaming the police and the police blaming the property management company, this could easily be repeatable. I also found the actual determination list of the crimes that have been happening at the location. The sheet that I found is called the Specified Crime Property Determination Notice. And so it's basically the notice that the police would write to an owner of a property who's allowing illicit activity to happen on the property. And so the letter reads as such: there is an extensive criminal call history for this property to include motor vehicle theft, aggravated assault, arson, and disturbing the peace. Notably, crime data indicates crime rates at this property have risen almost 30% since you purchased the property in 2019. If it is my determination that the property is a criminal nuisance property in violation of section they basically are gonna, close it down. That's a police determination notice that would be sent to the owner. If we look at the rest of the sheet, this is like a 6-7 page document, and it just lists some of the calls that have gone out throughout the last 2 years. And then I think this sheet is the reason why it was covered in the way that it was, because you're gonna say, hey, there's a bunch of violations, and yeah, the violations are pretty bad, and the inability for human habitation, I think it was the quote exact, but the violence going on for the last 2 years is the police are being called for is pretty bad. And so it's definitely time for us to really be vigilant and understand like that could pop up anywhere. That could happen anywhere. I genuinely want to think what you guys think. Am I tying things together that shouldn't be tied together? Or can you agree that maybe this immigration thing is a thing? And it's funny that this video would have started with a robbery of a jewelry store and it ends where in the weeds with police reports and police determinations on property. So I want to hear what you guys think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget, the goal is to get us to 1,000 subscribers. So go ahead, subscribe, share that. Help us get to 1,000. Let's monetize the channel and end 2024 with a bang. Tucker Carlson, call me, man. I got some crazy investigative skills. I'm trying to tell y'all. CNN, if you want to interview me, I'm all ears. In this article, it says, the city of Aurora said it shut down the complex. I read that backwards. I'll say that one more time. The city of Aurora said it shut down. Jesus Christ. All right. I'm fucking reading. And all right. So the article says,